Before we dive into this incredible story, please subscribe to my channel. Many people watch videos without subscribing. He didn't ask for a final meal or a phone call in the closing hours before his execution. It was for a final visit with his dog. However, what followed would freeze the guards, silence the prison, and reveal a long-hidden truth. The penitentiary's air felt heavier that morning, as though the walls themselves were anticipating what would happen. Everyone within felt the weight of every sound, including the clink of keys and the sound of boots on pavement. Daniel sat on the edge of his cot in his cell, his hands clutched loosely, his gaze focused on the chilly floor. The man who had entered 7 years prior was no longer the same. Time and regret had carved deep wrinkles into his face, softening the once sharp hostility in his eyes. The guards expected the usual last request: a steak dinner, a call to family, maybe a final letter. But when the warden asked, Daniel's voice was low, steady. "I want to see Max, my dog." A pause. Some guards exchanged glances. A condemned man choosing a dog over people? Unheard of. But for Daniel, Max wasn't just a pet. He was the only one who had stood by him before the arrest, before the trial, before the world turned its back. In his final hours, he didn't want forgiveness from strangers. He just wanted to look into the eyes that had never judged him. The warden leaned back, fingers steepled. He'd seen strange last requests: ice cream, a guitar, a priest who didn't show. But bringing a dog into a maximum security prison on execution day? Never. In the control room, officers debated. "It's a security risk," one said. "We've never allowed an animal in here, especially for a death row inmate." An older officer, quieter, spoke up. "Max is all he has left. No visitors, no letters, no one." He paused. "Maybe we should let him go in peace." The warden requested the file. Daniel's record was clean. No fights, no infractions, no escape attempts. In the personal notes, it stated he owned a German shepherd named Max for 8 years. The dog was seized at the time of arrest. After a long silence, the warden nodded. "Under strict supervision. Yard only. 10 minutes." Word spread fast. Some guards shook their heads. Others whispered about the bond between a man and his dog. For Daniel, those 10 minutes were an eternity. Somewhere out there, Max was on his way, and neither knew how much this moment would change everything. The prison yard stood still as the far gate creaked open. Daniel stood a few feet from a lone chair, wrists cuffed loosely in front of him, eyes locked on the entrance. Then he saw him. Max trotted in, his black and tan coat gleaming under the pale morning light. 2 officers flanked him, leash taut, but it was clear Max had already spotted his man. His ears shot forward, his tail began to wag, slow at first, then faster, like a metronome finding its rhythm. Daniel's breath caught. Years had passed, but nothing, the gray in the muzzle, the slight stiffness in the legs, could disguise the dog he'd raised from a pup. The officers glanced at the warden. A single nod. The leash slackened. Max surged forward. Daniel dropped to his knees just as the dog slammed into his chest, pressing his head into Daniel's shoulder, whining, a sound caught between joy and grief. For a moment, the prison vanished. No countdown, no death order. Just a man and his dog reunited. Daniel buried his face in the thick fur, breathing in the scent. Old leather, earth home. Memories flooded back. Long walks, muddy paws, quiet nights when Max's steady breathing kept him from falling apart. But then Max froze. His body went rigid. His tail stopped mid-wag. His ears pivoted. A deep, guttural growl rumbled from his chest. Daniel felt it before he heard it. Max wasn't looking at him anymore. His gaze was locked on a man standing 10 feet away. Officer Jenkins, tall, stiff, hands clasped behind his back. The growl deepened. Teeth flashed in a silent warning. Guards shifted uneasily. "Control your dog," one muttered, stepping forward. But Daniel placed a hand on Max's back. "Easy, boy," he whispered. "It's okay." It wasn't. Max had never growled like this without reason. Jenkins avoided eye contact, his jaw tight. Daniel's mind raced. He knew his dog's instincts, and Max was never wrong. For the first time that morning, curiosity stirred. Something about this man was setting Max off, and in a place where every second counted, instincts, especially a dog's, could mean everything. Max stayed tense, body angled toward the gate where Jenkins had vanished. Officer Ramirez, a guard who'd always treated Daniel with quiet respect, approached. "Your dog's got a good nose," he said low. "What's his problem with Jenkins?" Daniel shrugged, careful not to show too much. "Max doesn't growl at strangers for fun." Ramirez frowned. "Funny thing, Jenkins was on duty the night you were arrested, but he never reported it." The words hung heavy. Daniel kept his eyes on Max, but his mind was racing. If Jenkins had been there, why wasn't in the report? As if summoned, Jenkins reappeared at the far end of the yard. Max's growl returned, sharp, unrelenting. Ramirez's eyes narrowed. "That's not normal." The warden, watching from the tower, called down. "What's going on?" No one answered. The air was charged. Something unspoken was circling. Daniel knew one thing. This wasn't just a goodbye. It was the beginning of something else. And if Max was right, this yard wasn't a place of endings. It was about to become a battlefield for the truth. Later that afternoon, the warden summoned Daniel to a small interview room. Max was allowed to stay, still watching the door like a sentinel. Ramirez stood in the corner, arms crossed. Jenkins stood across from them, stiff, eyes cold. The warden spoke. "Jenkins, why didn't you disclose that you were on site the night of Daniel's arrest?" Jenkins' jaw tightened. "Didn't think it mattered. I was off duty, just passing by." Max let out a sharp bark, loud, sudden, his eyes locked on Jenkins, growl rising like thunder. Ramirez stepped forward. "Funny, because a witness just came forward. Said they saw a man matching your description, leaving Daniel's house before the police arrived." The warden's expression darkened. "We're reopening the case. Effective immediately. The execution is delayed." Daniel felt the air rush back into his lungs. Not freedom, not yet, but hope. Jenkins glared at him, but it didn't matter. For the first time in years, the truth had a crack to slip through, and it all started with a dog who refused to forget. The investigation moved fast. The new witness, the retested fingerprints, they didn't belong to Daniel. They matched Jenkins. Weeks passed. More evidence surfaced. Jenkins had been at the scene. He'd planted evidence. He'd committed the crime. He was arrested, charged with the same murder Daniel had been sentenced for. The prosecution dropped the charges. The prison gates, once the end of Daniel's life, now swung open to set him free. And there, just beyond the fence, was Max, tail wagging, eyes bright. Daniel dropped to his knees, buried his face in the fur, and whispered, "We made it, boy. We made it." He stepped forward. No cuffs, no guards, no walls. Just open sky and the sound of their footsteps on free ground. The world hadn't changed much, but Daniel had. He wasn't a man defined by a sentence. He was the man his dog had believed in all along. And now, thanks to that loyalty, he had a second chance to live, to prove Max right. This story reminds us that love doesn't need words, that loyalty doesn't care about courtrooms or time. Sometimes, the truth doesn't come from a witness stand. It comes from a dog who remembers. If this story moved you, please like, share, and subscribe to K9 Miracle Stories. Stay with us for more heartwarming, unbelievable tales of courage, loyalty, and second chances. Your next journey begins right now on the screen in front of you.